The stars look different from this part of space. Captain Lisa Harrison stood on the bridge of the Earth diplomatic corps vessel Boundary, her eyes fixed on the massive ship approaching them. Its hull gleamed with a metallic purple sheen that seemed impossible, like oil floating on water but frozen in place. "They're hailing us again, Captain," said Communications Officer Frank Wells, his voice steadied despite the tension in the air. Lisa nodded. "Put them through." The screen flickered to life, showing a tall, thin figure with gray-blue skin and eyes that seemed too large for its narrow face. High Commander Zyvex of the Alaxian Empire looked down at Lisa with what she could only describe as bored contempt. "Human vessel," Zyvex said, not bothering with greetings. "You will follow our escort to the diplomatic station. The Grand Emperor wishes to evaluate your species' potential usefulness." Lisa maintained her diplomatic smile. "We look forward to peaceful discussions, High Commander. Earth sends its warmest regards to your Emperor." The alien made a sound like stones grinding together, their version of dismissive laughter. The screen went black. "Well, that was friendly," muttered Security Chief Nathan Powell, checking his sidearm for the 5th time that hour. "They've been the biggest power in this part of the galaxy for over 3,000 years, said Science Officer Diane Miller. "They probably see us like we'd see a clever dog that learned a new trick." Lisa turned to her crew. "Remember our mission. We're here to establish diplomatic relations, learn about the galactic community, and protect Earth's interests. Nothing more, nothing less." The journey to the diplomatic station took 3 hours. Lisa used this time to review the limited intelligence they had gathered about the Alaxians. They controlled over 200 star systems. They had subjugated at least 18 different intelligent species. Their technology was centuries ahead of Earth's in most areas, but not all areas, Lisa reminded herself. The diplomatic station orbited a gas giant with rings that put Saturn to shame. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, a massive wheel-shaped structure with spires extending from its hub like needles from a sea urchin. Inside, Lisa and her small team were led through corridors lined with representatives from a dozen alien species. Some looked nearly human. Others defied description. All of them moved aside as the Alaxian guards escorted the humans to the meeting chamber. The chamber was designed to intimidate. The humans sat at a small table at the bottom of what was essentially a giant pit, with row upon row of alien observers rising up around them. At the highest point sat a figure on an elevated throne, the Grand Emperor himself, though at this distance he was little more than a silhouette. High Commander Zyvex stood across from Lisa. "The Emperor welcomes Earth to the galactic community," he said without warmth. "We have studied your world from afar. Your resources are plentiful. Your military is primitive but shows potential. The Emperor offers you the honor of vassal status within the Empire." Lisa kept her expression neutral. "We appreciate the offer, High Commander. However, Earth is an independent world with its own governance. We seek friendship, trade, and knowledge exchange as equals." The chamber filled with the stone-grinding sound of Alaxian laughter. "Equality must be earned, human," Zyvex said. "Your species is barely a millennium into space travel. The Empire was charting stars before your kind invented the wheel." "Age doesn't always equal wisdom," Lisa replied calmly. "We have much to learn from each other." The meeting continued for hours. The Alaxians listed their demands. Earth would provide raw materials, soldiers for the Imperial forces, and submission to Imperial law. In return, they would protect Earth and allow limited access to some Imperial technology. When it was over, Lisa and her team returned to the Boundary. As their ship pulled away from the station, Nathan voiced what they were all thinking. "They're going to be a problem, aren't they, Captain?" Lisa watched the Imperial ships on the viewport. "Yes, but they don't understand humans yet, and that might be our only advantage." The Boundary jumped to faster than light speed, carrying news back to Earth about the Alaxian Empire's expansion plans. and their dangerous misunderstanding of humanity's willingness to be conquered. 6 months had passed since first contact with the Alaxian Empire. Earth had used this time wisely. Admiral John Cooper stood on the bridge of the EDS Defender, the largest ship in Earth's unified defense fleet. His weathered face showed no emotion as he watched the enemy ships appear at the edge of the Sol system. 15 Alaxian warships detected near Pluto's orbit, sir, reported Sensor Officer Grace Kelly. They're moving slowly in formation. A show of force, Cooper said quietly, just as we expected. The Admiral's blue eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. The Alaxian ships were massive compared to Earth's vessels. They glowed with strange energy fields our sensors couldn't fully understand. Message from Earth Command, sir, said Communications Officer Ben Martinez. We are authorized to demonstrate capability level 3 if provoked. Not before. Cooper nodded. Understood. All ships maintain position at Mars' orbital line. Let them come to us. For 2 days, the Alaxian fleet moved slowly through the outer solar system. They ignored all attempts at communication. Then, without warning, one of their cruisers broke formation and accelerated toward Jupiter. They're targeting the research station on Europa, Grace said, her voice tight. Cooper watched in cold silence as the Alaxian ship fired a single energy beam. The research station, home to 63 scientists, vanished in a flash of light. Message from the Alaxian fleet, sir, Ben said. Audio only. A deep voice filled the bridge. This is Commander Krax of the Imperial Fleet. Consider this a lesson in respect. Prepare your planet for Imperial rule or face extinction. Cooper's face remained calm, but his knuckles turned white as he gripped the command rail. Open a channel, he ordered. Channel open. Sir. This is Admiral John Cooper of Earth Defense Forces. You have committed an act of war against Earth by destroying our research outpost. You murdered 63 civilians. There will be consequences. The Alaxian commander's laugh came through the speakers. Your threats are as meaningless as your existence, human. Your primitive ships pose no danger to the Imperial fleet. Cooper cut the transmission. Tactical. Prepare Void missile. Target the ship that attacked our station. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what the Void weapon could do. It had never been used in actual combat. Sir, said First Officer Olivia Grant, are we authorized to deploy Void? That's beyond capability level 3. Cooper looked at her steadily. They just killed 63 of our people to make a point. We need to make one of our own. He turned back to the tactical display. Launch when ready. A single missile left the Defender's launch bay. It looked ordinary, just a small point of light on the display. The Alaxian ships didn't even attempt to intercept it. Impact in 5 seconds, Grace reported. The missile struck the Alaxian cruiser that had destroyed the Europa station. There was no explosion, no debris. One moment the massive alien ship was there, and the next it simply wasn't. Void impact confirmed, Grace said, her voice filled with wonder. Target has been erased, sir. The most disturbing part wasn't just that the ship was gone. All sensor records of its existence had disappeared from their systems. Even the crew's memories of exactly what the ship had looked like began to blur. It was as if the cruiser had never been built. Send a message to the remaining Alaxian ships, Cooper ordered. Tell them that Earth does not recognize their authority. Tell them that we don't fight wars like they do. If they attack us again, we won't just destroy their ships. We'll erase them from history. For several long minutes, there was no response from the Alaxian fleet. Then, without a word, their engines flared to life. One by one, they turned and accelerated away from Earth. They're retreating, sir, Grace said in disbelief. Cooper nodded. For now. But they'll be back. And with more ships next time. As he watched the alien fleet retreat, Cooper thought about what waited for them back in their empire. They would report what they had seen, or rather, what they had failed to see. A weapon that didn't just destroy, but erased. Send a message to Earth Command, Cooper said. Tell them we need to accelerate the ERASURE program. The Empire now knows what we can do. They'll be afraid. And afraid empires make dangerous decisions. The Grand Hall of Military Strategy on the Alaxian homeworld had never been so quiet. 12 high commanders sat around a massive black table, watching the recording for the 5th time. "Play it again," ordered Supreme War Leader Vorel Keith, his gray-blue skin darkened with stress. The hologram showed the human missile approaching the Imperial cruiser. Then nothing. Not an explosion. Not destruction. The cruiser simply vanished, along with all sensor data about it. Even the recording seemed to flicker, as if the technology itself couldn't properly remember what had happened. "This is impossible," said Commander Zrek, pounding his 3-fingered hand on the table. "Nothing can make matter simply cease to exist." Vorel Keith zoomed in on the human ships in the recording. "We have conquered 18 species across 200 star systems. We have always had superior technology, superior numbers, superior strategy. But these humans," he paused, "they have something we don't understand." Across the Empire, panic was spreading. Not openly. The Imperial media made sure of that, but in whispered conversations and private messages. The loss of an Imperial cruiser was shocking enough. But a weapon that seemed to break the laws of physics, that was terrifying. On Earth, diplomatic officer Maya Patel walked quickly through the hallways of the United Earth Government building in Geneva. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, and she carried a tablet filled with encrypted messages. She entered the emergency meeting room where Earth's leaders had gathered. Admiral Cooper was there, along with the president and military chiefs from all major Earth nations. "The Alaxian Empire has requested emergency diplomatic talks," Maya announced. "They're scared." President Diane Winters nodded. "Good. They should be. But we need more time to fully develop our defensive capabilities." "We need to stall them," agreed General Luis Garcia. "Every day gives our scientists more time to expand the VOI technology." Maya took her seat. "I'll lead the diplomatic team. We'll keep them talking while we prepare." What no one in the room knew was that at that exact moment, a human agent was risking everything to discover the Empire's true plans. Intelligence Officer Ryan Garcia crawled through the narrow maintenance shaft of the Alaxian outpost on Moon LX 549. His breathing was slow and controlled despite the danger. If caught, he would face a death more horrible than any human could imagine. The outpost was supposed to be a minor refueling station, but Earth intelligence had noticed unusual communications traffic. Something important was happening here. Ryan reached the central data hub and plugged in his decoder device, a small black disk that could break through Alaxian security protocols. As data streamed into his specialized contact lenses, his heart began to beat faster. "No," he whispered. "They've been busy." The information was clear. While assessing humanity, the Empire had not been idle. They had conquered 3 other species in a nearby sector. The data showed their strategy. Divide the potential resistance, then conquer each group separately. Classic Empire tactics. But there was something else in the files. Urgent communications about a massive fleet gathering. Not for the newly conquered worlds, but for Earth. The Empire was preparing an overwhelming assault to crush the human threat before it could spread. Ryan downloaded everything he could and began his escape. He had to get this information back to Earth. The Empire wasn't coming to negotiate. They were coming to exterminate. Back in the Grand Hall, Vorel Keith finalized his plans. "The humans must not be allowed to develop this technology further," he declared. "We will strike their most distant colony first. This New Haven, far from Earth, poorly defended. When we destroy it, we send a message about the consequences of defying the Empire." Commander Zrek looked troubled. "But what if they use their weapon again?" Vorel Keith's expression hardened. "That's why we're sending 200 ships. Even if they erase some of our vessels, they cannot erase them all. And once New Haven burns, Earth will understand that not even their strange technology can save them." What the Empire didn't know was that Earth had anticipated this move. and New Haven had more than just standard defenses waiting. Colonel Samantha Wright stood on the command deck of New Haven's defense station, watching as the sky filled with Alaxian warships. The colony planet, 20 light-years from Earth, was home to nearly 50,000 humans. It was supposed to be safe. 200 enemy ships detected, Colonel, said Lieutenant Paul Garcia, his young face pale but determined. They've surrounded the planet. Samantha nodded calmly. Begin evacuation protocol. Get as many civilians to the underground shelters as possible. She had known this was coming. Earth intelligence had warned them 3 days ago. But even with the warning, New Haven's defenses were no match for an armada this size. Enemy ships are launching fighters, Paul reported. They'll reach the outer defense ring in 5 minutes. Samantha opened a secure channel to all defense stations. This is Colonel Wright. You all know what we're facing. Fight with everything you have. Buy time for the civilians. That's your mission. New Haven's 30 defense satellites opened fire as the first wave of Alaxian fighters screamed through the atmosphere. Laser arrays on the ground joined in, filling the sky with deadly light. But there were too many enemies. For every fighter they destroyed, 5 more took its place. Colonel, we've lost defense stations 3 through 7, Paul reported, his voice shaking. They're breaking through the eastern sector. Samantha watched as an Alaxian destroyer fired on one of the colony cities. Buildings crumbled. Fires spread. Civilian evacuation only 40% complete, said Communications Officer Linda Davis. We need more time. Samantha's hand moved to the small device attached to her uniform. The orders from Earth had been clear. Use it only as a last resort. Enemy troops landing in sectors 5, 8, and 12, Paul reported. They're moving toward the central habitat dome. Samantha made her decision. Send emergency code Omega to Earth Command. Request permission to activate ERASURE protocol. The response came back almost instantly. Permission granted. May God help us all. Samantha turned to her officers. It's been an honor serving with you. She pressed her thumb against the device. A small needle pricked her skin, confirming her DNA and authorization. A soft voice said, ERASURE protocol activated. Countdown initiated. Time to reality disruption. 60 seconds. What happens now, Colonel? Asked Linda, her voice barely a whisper. Samantha looked out at the battle raging around her colony. Now we find out if our scientists were right. The device began to pulse with a soft blue light. The pulse spread outward, touching the walls, the floor, the people. It didn't hurt. It felt like gentle rain on the skin. 30 seconds, said the soft voice. Outside, the Alaxian forces continued their assault, unaware of what was happening. Their ground troops had reached the main habitat dome and were breaking through its outer walls. 20 seconds. Samantha closed her eyes. She thought of Earth, of her family back home. She had volunteered for this assignment knowing it might come to this. 10 seconds. The blue light grew brighter, filling the command center, spreading across the colony, reaching up toward the Alaxian ships in orbit. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then, nothing. No explosion, no destruction, just silence. Across the galaxy, something impossible happened. Records changed. Memories shifted. Reality itself seemed to hiccup. On the Alaxian homeworld, war leader Voral Keith stared in confusion at reports from the New Haven assault fleet. Except there were no reports. According to all records, no fleet had been sent to attack any human colony. But he remembered ordering the attack. He remembered 200 ships departing for the human world. He checked the military database. The ships were all accounted for, docked at various stations throughout the Empire. They had never left. Yet he remembered. On Earth, Admiral Cooper received the strangest report of his career. New Haven Colony reported all systems normal. No attack had occurred. But attached to the report was a simple message. ERASURE successful. Reality adjustment complete. No casualties. The Empire had sent a fleet to destroy New Haven. Cooper was certain of it. He had seen the intelligence reports. He had authorized the ERASURE protocol. But now, according to every record, every sensor, and increasingly to his own memories, no attack had ever happened. The humans hadn't just erased the battle. They had erased the war itself. Dr. Alan Martinez walked slowly to the podium. The room held the most powerful people on Earth: presidents, prime ministers, military leaders, and science directors. They had gathered in the underground bunker beneath Geneva to hear the truth. Alan looked tired. He hadn't slept properly in days. His hand shook slightly as he adjusted his glasses. "Thank you for coming," he began. "What I'm about to share will change your understanding of reality itself." A large screen behind him lit up with complex equations and diagrams. 10 years ago, my team discovered something strange about the universe. We found that time isn't fixed. Reality isn't fixed. Both can be adjusted. The room stayed completely silent. Our first test was small. We erased a single apple from existence. Not just destroyed it, but removed it from history so it never existed at all. Alan clicked a button, showing a video of a laboratory. An apple sat on a table. A machine hummed. Then the apple was gone. But more than that, the scientists in the video suddenly acted as if there had never been an apple there at all. We called this technology VOID, Vector-Oriented Interstellar Disruptor, when we applied it to weapons. But the full technology is called ERASURE. It doesn't just destroy targets. It changes the timeline so they never existed in the first place. President Winters leaned forward. "Dr. Martinez, are you saying we can change history?" Alan nodded. "In a limited way, yes. We can create what we call causality bubbles, areas where the timeline is altered. Inside these bubbles, events happen differently than they did in the original timeline. Like the attack on New Haven," said Admiral Cooper. "Exactly," Alan agreed. "To the Empire, they sent 200 ships to attack our colony. They remember planning it. But then reality shifted. Their ships are now safely in their docks. According to records and increasingly to everyone's memories, no attack ever happened." General Garcia looked troubled. "If we can change reality, why don't we just erase the entire Alaxian Empire?" Alan shook his head. "The energy requirements increase exponentially with the size and time depth of the causality bubble. Erasing a single battle is possible. Erasing an empire that has existed for thousands of years would require more energy than exists in our solar system." A woman in the back raised her hand. "What are the limits of this technology?" "Good question," Alan said. "We can only create causality bubbles around events we directly observe or participate in. We can't change the distant past. And there's something else you should know. We aren't the only ones who can remember the original timeline. Some Alaxians remember too. That's why they're terrified." On the Alaxian homeworld, a human spy moved quietly through the shadows of the Imperial Science Academy. Kelvin Reeves had lived among the Alaxians for 5 years, altering his appearance with surgery to blend in. His mission: gather intelligence on Empire technology. Today, his mission had changed. Today, he was deliberately leaking information. Kelvin placed a small data chip on the desk of the Empire's chief scientist. The chip contained partial information about ERASURE technology, just enough to confirm the Empire's worst fears. As he slipped away, alarms began to sound. Not for him, for an emergency meeting of the Imperial High Command. His bug in their communication system picked up the panic in their voices. The humans can alter reality itself. How do we fight an enemy that can erase our attacks from history? What if they're changing our memories right now? Kelvin smiled as he transmitted one final message to Earth before destroying his communication device. The message was simple: fear confirmed. They're ready to talk. Back on Earth, Dr. Martinez finished his briefing. The Empire has built its power on military might. But how do you fight an enemy that doesn't destroy your ships, but makes it so your ships were never sent to battle in the first place? How do you plan attacks when your plans might be erased from your own mind? President Winters stood up. So what do we do now? Alan's tired face showed a small smile. Now we talk to them. Our spy reports they're terrified enough to listen. We don't want their empire. We just want to be left alone. And if they don't agree? Alan's expression turned serious. Then we show them that the technology they've seen so far is just the beginning. HFY can do much more than erase a single battle. As the meeting ended, Alan thought about the irony. Humans had spent thousands of years perfecting ways to destroy each other. Now, their salvation came from learning how to make destruction itself never happen. Kalisto, once just another moon of Jupiter, now served as neutral ground. The massive diplomatic station floating above its icy surface gleamed like a silver coin against the dark sky. Representatives from 18 species had gathered to witness the historic meeting between humanity and the Alaxian Empire. Chief Negotiator Olivia Daniels stepped off the Earth shuttle, her dark skin contrasting with her white diplomatic uniform. 4 security officers walked with her, along with Dr. Alan Martinez and Admiral Cooper. Remember the plan, Olivia said quietly. We're not here to threaten them. We're here to establish peace. A peace based on fear, Admiral Cooper replied. Olivia shook her head. A peace based on mutual understanding of consequences. The human delegation was led into the grand meeting chamber. The room was circular, with a large round table in the center. Above them, observation galleries held representatives from other species, all eager to see how the mighty empire would deal with the upstart humans. Grand Envoy Thralix of the Alaxian Empire entered from the opposite door. He was taller than most Alaxians, his blue-gray skin decorated with the gold markings of high imperial rank. 6 Alaxian guards followed him, along with their top military strategist, Voral Keith. Welcome to the first official peace summit between Earth and the Alaxian Empire, said the neutral moderator, a member of the ancient Tellurian species. Please be seated. Olivia sat directly across from Thralix. For a long moment, neither spoke. The Empire has ruled this sector of the galaxy for 3,000 years, Thralix finally said. We have brought order and progress to countless worlds. Through fear and force, Olivia replied calmly. Thralix's large eyes narrowed. Your species is young and arrogant. You've discovered one unusual technology, and think it makes you our equals. We don't want to be your equals, Olivia said. We simply want to be left alone. Voral Keith leaned forward. Your ERASURE technology. How many ships can it affect at once? How far can it reach? Olivia smiled slightly. Those are not the questions of someone seeking peaceful relations. Answer the question, Thralix demanded. Dr. Martinez spoke up. Perhaps a demonstration would be more effective than an explanation. Olivia nodded and placed a small device on the table. It looked simple, just a metal cube with a single button. Before this meeting, we placed ERASURE nodes throughout Imperial space, she said, not as weapons, but as insurance. The Alaxians shifted uncomfortably in their seats. You're bluffing, Thralix said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Olivia pressed the button on the device. Nothing seemed to happen. The room remained the same. Everyone remained in their seats. What was that supposed to prove? Thralix asked with a dismissive wave. Olivia smiled. You don't remember, do you? In the original timeline, we just spent an hour negotiating trade routes. You offered us 3 systems near the Orion Spur. I countered by asking for 5. We eventually agreed on 4. Thralix stared at her in confusion. What are you talking about? We just sat down. Exactly, Olivia said. I erased the last hour of negotiations from everyone's memory except my own. It happened, but now it never did. The observation galleries erupted in shocked murmurs. Representatives from other species looked at each other in confusion, suddenly unsure of their own memories. Voral Keith's face darkened with rage and fear. This is an abomination. You tamper with the fabric of reality itself. Only when necessary, Olivia replied. We don't want your empire. We don't want your worlds. We want peace, guaranteed by mutual understanding. She slid a datapad across the table. These are our terms: freedom for Earth and its colonies, non-interference in human affairs, open trade with any species that wishes to trade with us. Frelex looked at the human delegation with new eyes, not as primitives who had gotten lucky, but as something unknown and dangerous. And if we refuse? Olivia's expression remained pleasant, but her eyes hardened. Then we'll use the ERASURE technology again, not to harm your people, but to change the outcome of this meeting. We'll keep changing it until we reach an agreement that works for both sides. She leaned forward. You built an empire on winning wars. We built our future on making sure wars don't happen at all. Which approach do you think is more powerful? In the tense silence that followed, representatives of 18 subjugated species watched closely, seeing for the first time in millennia something they had forgotten existed: hope. 1 year after the Kalisto summit, Admiral William Foster stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital shipyard. Below him, engineers were dismantling the battleship Defiant, converting its powerful weapon systems into parts for deep space exploration vessels. Strange to see warships being taken apart instead of built, said Dr. Alan Martinez, who stood beside him. William nodded. 10 more scheduled for decommissioning next month. The Defense Council says we don't need them anymore. The two men watched as a section of the Defiant's hull was carefully removed. Earth's fleet was shrinking, but not because of defeat. The ERASURE technology had changed everything. How are the joint research projects going? William asked. Alan smiled. Better than expected. The Alaxians are brilliant scientists once they stop trying to conquer everyone. Their understanding of quantum mechanics is helping us improve the ERASURE tech for peaceful applications. After the Kalisto summit, the Alaxian Empire had withdrawn from 27 previously conquered systems, creating a demilitarized zone between their territory and Earth-controlled space. The peace wasn't built on trust. It was built on the certainty that Earth could erase any aggression from reality itself. President Winters is meeting with their new emperor today, William said. First time an imperial ruler has left their homeworld in 300 years. They're afraid of us, Alan said quietly. I'm not sure that's the best foundation for lasting peace. William turned to face his friend. Fear is just the beginning. Understanding comes next, then respect. On the other side of the galaxy, an Alaxian science vessel approached an abandoned space station. Grand Scientist Kellex, once devoted to creating weapons for the Empire, now led the first joint human-Alaxian research team. Sensor readings are strange. Exactly as you predicted, said his human colleague, Dr. Sofia Rivera. The station exists in a partial state, half in our reality, half in another. Kellex's large eyes blinked with excitement, a perfect test case for non-military applications of ERASURE technology. The space station had been damaged in a solar flare 30 years ago, its atomic structure partly shifted out of normal spacetime. For decades, it had been considered unsalvageable. Beginning the targeted reality restoration, Sofia said, activating the modified ERASURE device. The station before them flickered, then solidified. Areas that had been transparent or distorted now appeared solid and whole. It worked, Kellex exclaimed. We didn't erase, we restored. Sofia nodded, her eyes bright. This is just the beginning. Think of what this means for disaster recovery, medicine, environmental restoration. In the imperial palace on the Alaxian homeworld, the young Emperor Thrill listened carefully as his advisors explained the latest developments from the joint research projects with humans. They could have destroyed us, said Advisor Vexel. Instead, they offered partnership. Because they are wise, the Emperor replied. They understood that erasing an enemy is useful once. Teaching an enemy to become an ally is useful forever. A servant entered the room, bowing low. Your Imperial Majesty, representatives from the Krith and Zolian systems request an audience. They wish to discuss new trade agreements. The Emperor nodded. Show them in. Once feared throughout the galaxy, the Alaxians were learning a new way to interact with other species. Their military still existed, but its primary purpose had shifted to peacekeeping and disaster response. Back on Earth, William and Alan left the observation deck and walked toward the new Interstellar Cooperation Center, where delegates from 42 different species now work together. You know what's ironic? William said. For thousands of years, humans dreamed about going to the stars. We always imagined we'd need powerful weapons to survive out there. Alan smiled. Instead, we discovered something far more powerful than any weapon. What's that? The ability to make weapons unnecessary. As they entered the center, representatives from across the galaxy were discussing new trade routes, cultural exchanges, and joint scientific missions. Former enemies now worked side by side on projects that benefited all. The once mighty empire had spent millennia perfecting the art of winning wars, but humans had discovered something far more valuable: the ability to ensure wars never happened at all. And across the galaxy, species that had lived in fear for generations looked to Earth, not as conquerors, but as liberators, the strange beings who didn't fight wars, but erased them.